Thanks. I'm going to just take this off for a minute. Yeah, my name is Don Amero, born and raised here in Winnipeg, Manitoba. Maybe before I kind of begin the presentation, I'll just give you a little bit about myself, kind of catch you up for the last little while of what I've been up to. Going to give you a quick little glimpse of my life growing up. I grew up in the north end of Winnipeg. My parents both played and sang. They always wanted to do something with music, and they didn't. They had us kids at a pretty young age, and so for them, music was a hobby. But this is what I grew up with: is my parents playing and singing in our kitchen at home, and it wasn't until I was about 15 years old that I first kind of dabbled in music for the first time. I was in grade 9. And up until then, I had always been a shops kid. I'd gone to like woodworking and auto mechanic type stuff, and never did anything in the arts ever. But then I liked a girl in grade 9, and I thought one way I could try to get her to notice me was audition for the school play. I don't know why I thought that would work, but I got up in front of the class and I sang a song from Oklahoma. It's like this cheesy kind of 1950s or earlier, I don't know, Western kind of play. And I sang the song from the play, and I didn't know what to expect, and I was finished. It wasn't even a great song. I think it was like, Oklahoma, where the wind comes sweeping down, like really cheesy. And when I was done, I looked, the teacher was crying, and then 3 girls in the front row were crying. And I was like, oh man, that was bad. That's immediately where my mind went, and I ended up getting the lead role of the play, so I guess it wasn't as bad as I thought. And from there on, it sort of launched me. I picked up my dad. My dad had this amazing guitar to learn on. It was a Gibson, a Gibson Hummingbird, like a 50-year-old guitar, and it was just magical to learn on. So. That's when I first started writing. I was 15, started writing at the same time, and I'm 32 now. I've been playing guitar and singing and writing my own stuff for 17 years, probably the same age as some of you guys. And it's been incredible. I jumped in full time as a music career about 5 years ago, and I haven't looked back since. It's been a roller coaster ride. Every year gets better than the last, and it's been incredible. So part of my presentation today is going to tell you a little bit about the story that led me to doing what I do, and hopefully will give you insight as to what music can be as a career. So just some things to keep in mind for the presentation here. A really important one, ask questions. I'm going to kind of breeze through this presentation because I know we're sort of at the last session today and buses are going to be picking you guys up, I think. So I'm going to kind of get through this really quickly. So if you have questions, just save them up, write them down, whatever, and I'll open it up to some questions at the end. So please, question everything that comes up today. Another one is be respectful to each other. If my presentation gets boring, be respectful of those people around you because they might be into what I'm doing, and most importantly, respect me. And as was mentioned earlier, turn off your cell phones because those can be quite distracting. Unless, of course, you're taking a picture of me and Instagramming it and saying this guy's awesome, then that's okay. But for the most part, keep your phones off. What's really important to know is that what I'm going to share with you guys is my story. There's no two stories that are kind of the same. Everybody in the music industry that you see and read about and hear about has all gotten there very differently. I happen to choose some of the biggest pop stars in the world to kind of put my picture up there with, but everybody's story is so unique. So what you're going to hear today is kind of how I did it, how I built my career as an independent musician. So keep that in mind. You're going to become a rock star one day and maybe be like this guy, or not. I saw this picture online and I had to share it. Just thought it was worth showing you guys. So he's awesome. I don't dress like that. What I hope to do today is in this session is sort of give you guys some of the tools if you're interested in music as a career, giving you the tools as to how you can do that. Let me just do a quick little poll. Who here is interested in like actually being a performer on stage? Yeah, okay. Anybody interested in other avenues of music? Like, here, oh yeah, I forgot to say, your mom's always going to think you're cool no matter how good or bad you are, so just keep that in mind as well. So there's careers in music. What is it that you want to do? For me, I'm a full-time musician, not quite as popular as this guy, but I'm a full-time musician. Anybody else interested in other parts? Like there's music management. There's that guy. He's one of the biggest music managers in the world. Agency. You guys know what an agent is in the music world? Yeah. So it's like not like that. Kind of more like this guy here. I like that picture because this is I can't remember his name, from Ari. Yeah, from Entourage. So he's got two phones in his hand. I thought it was kind of funny because that's kind of what agents are. They're always on the phone. They're always trying to get you gigs, and their job is basically just to find you a gig and make you good money, and they get a piece of that pie. So that's what an agent does. And there's so many other positions in music. There's publicity. There's just being songwriters. There's recording, producing, mastering, mixing, live sound, entertainment lawyers, composers. Roadies, and there's so many more opportunities out there in the music world. So it's not just being on stage with a microphone. There's so many other careers in music. But what I'm going to speak to you about is a career in as being a singer-songwriter. So if you're kind of in the place where you want to start, this is kind of how I began. So I started. First thing I did is actually kind of played in a lot of different bands. My brother and I, we put together a band, and then we hated it, and we probably sucked, so we stopped. And then the next band I played with, we kind of toughed it out for about a year or two, and we didn't get anywhere, so we stopped. And then eventually I just started realizing that my best offer is basically going out solo. So I did a lot of solo gigs, and that was kind of my foray into the music world. And now I also have a band that I play with and travel with now and again. But for the most part, I'm known as a solo artist. And now and again, I get a band to back me up. This year, I'll be playing Dauphin Country Fest with my band, which will be a lot of fun. So, step 2, record. I love what you can do with recording nowadays, and I think sometimes the best way of doing it is just capture the honest performance. Whether it's a video, whether it's sitting in a room hitting record. On your Mac or whatever it is, and just catching a live performance. That's the most basic form of doing it. If you can afford, or if you have the means to record in a studio, that's always better. But record something. Interesting story. My first album I released in 2006, and I used GarageBand to make that album. So it cost me like next to nothing. It cost about $700 to get 200 CDs manufactured. And about $300 in rental equipment. So essentially this album cost me about $1,000 to make my first album. And I went on the road with that album, and I sold 2,000 copies. And now that doesn't compare to international artists that are selling thousands and thousands of albums. But for me, 2,000 albums meant $30,000 worth of income. So that's a pretty big profit margin from where I started to actually earning money. And realistically, it can be done. If you think about it, Winnipeg's population is upwards of 700,000 people or more. And if you take it to a couple of communities now. That being said, not everybody's going to come to your show, but if you can get a small fraction of each of people in each community to be into what you're doing, really you can make a decent amount of money through CD sales. It's just about being strategic about how you're going to do that. And also, I went to a studio with my last 2 albums, and I actually paid $1,000 a song. This is really good to note, and each of those albums cost a little bit more than $12,000 each. And haven't sold much more than my first album of those ones. So really, when you think about it, the less money I spent, I still made about the same amount in sales. So I need to gauge how I was doing it. So my last album, I actually recorded it on GarageBand again, and had somebody else mix and master it and do the proper dress up of the song and of the album. And it's selling great. So you don't always have to spend a ton of money to have a great recording. Next step. This is probably the thing I would mention you the most. So if everything else bores you, and I'm not getting you with all the other stuff I'm mentioning this morning or this afternoon, ManitobaMusic.com. Who's heard of it? Who's heard of ManitobaMusic.com? A few of you. This place is gold. I can't stress enough how important this organization is. Every province across the country has a music association, and I kid you not, Manitoba's is the best. So good, in fact, that our director has now gone on to other associations to help them catch up to how good Winnipeg's Music Association is. This is the website. When you go to this, is kind of what you'll see. Takes a little bit of time kind of navigating through a website because it's got a lot of information, but it's great because if you think about waiting around to get signed, it's kind of like winning the lottery. It's not going to happen. But using Manitoba Music as a resource for you as a musician is almost like using them kind of like a label. But they're so. I mean, they probably wouldn't want me calling them a label because it's not really what they are. You pay $50 a year to join, and they're really kind of the gateway to all different areas of music. So, I mean, I wish I could, express it in a small couple of paragraphs about how good they are. But, they from the beginning to, if you say, hey, I've got a few songs and I want to do something with them, you can set up a meeting with them. They'll connect you with the right people to either record those songs or maybe help you make the songs a little bit better, set you up with songwriters. And let's say you're ready to go on the road and tour. They can give you all the connections across Canada, even in the U.S., to start touring in new markets. It's incredible. That's all I want to say is remember ManitobaMusic.com, because that's definitely the place to start. So really, essentially, this should be step one, not step three. But yeah, I got a step three. Step four, play some shows. Like if you're at the place where you've got some songs and you've got a recording and you can even play some shows without recording, but recordings help you make a little bit of money. That's kind of the idea of when we're talking about music as a career, you want to kind of find some sustainability financially, and having an album would do that. But playing shows, my first years of playing, I played maybe 30 shows a year, and played 2 or 3 times a week around Winnipeg here, and just slowly built a stage presence and tried to get my stuff together that way. And now I do about 150 shows a year across the country and into the U.S. and trying to make some European connections these days. And you have to get out there and play. I think that's a key thing. So and when I first started, I sat on a stool. I would kind of keep my head down, and I had a music stand in front of me, and I would never look up. I was always so shy, and that's kind of how it started for me. Is especially when you're writing your own songs, you kind of feel like you're reading your journal every night. So it's such an intimate thing to do. But eventually, I've gotten beyond having the music stand in front of me and really enjoying getting out there and playing. And I wouldn't have gotten that far or this far without having played a bunch of shows. So get out there and play if you can. Final tip, do all you can to gain knowledge and experience in the world of music. The great thing is you don't have to leave home anymore to really educate yourself. It's all right in front of you on the computer. So do all that you can to do that. And I mean, you ever heard the saying, it's who you know? In music, it really is about getting out there as well and meeting people face to face, which you can't do in front of your computer. So even though I say you can get educated in front of your computer, getting in the business and understanding in the networking, it's really about getting out there and meeting people, shaking hands, and just really trying to sell yourself. Which I'm a terrible salesman, so it's a really hard thing to do. A lot of musicians hate that part of the music business, the networking stuff, because everybody's trying to sell something, everybody's trying to make money, and so now I have a manager who does that for me, which is really nice because I'm really not a good salesman. I can't. I used to be. You'd call a gig and you'd be like, hey. This is Don Amero. I heard about your festival. It sounds really great. I'm really great. You need to have me there. And it's just such an awkward conversation to have, to tell people that you're great. It just seems so weird. You kind of hope that they find that you're great and get you. But it's great having a manager that will do that for you. So just a quick little recap if you're taking notes. Step 1, start a band or go solo. Step 2, record. 3, join Manitoba Music and play some shows and learn all you can. So those are 5 points that I think are quite strong in helping you kind of get started in music. This is no secret. You guys all know about social media, and you probably used a little bit of it if you're out there doing anything musically now. These 3 here, Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, they're a must, I think, if you're going to get out there in the music world. You have to be using these. Twitter's an awkward one. I think it's great because it keeps people up to date on everything that's going on in your life. And I think people want that personal connection, so that's why Twitter's great. But as you know, Facebook's kind of like a new website. You don't necessarily even have to have your own brand of website. You can just use Facebook and have all your stuff go through there, which most people are doing nowadays. And YouTube, I think people just want constant content, so you have to be uploading a lot of videos. So those 3 are a must. Other ones that I use are CBC, which is nationally recognized music source, and they're really good for independent music. They support a lot of that. Sonic Bids is an electronic press kit company. It costs a little bit of money, not very much. I think it's like $20 or $30 a month, and there are certain venues and festivals that only take submissions through Sonic Bids. So that's why I joined. So whenever a festival is coming up, it'll say we only accept EPKs through Sonic Bids, which basically is my profile, bio, where I'm playing, my discography, things like that. So it just gives them a quick little insight of what I do. So that's really important. CD Baby, have you guys heard of CD Baby before? CD Baby's great. For people like you and me who don't have a big label to push us and get us into the iTunes doorway, if you have a single, you have a song you want to release on iTunes, you pay like $5 to CD Baby. They'll set everything up. You just got to punch a bit of information in, and in 2 weeks your song's on iTunes. So it's a really simple way of doing it, and they take a really small cut, and I get checks every couple of months from them from iTunes sales, and so it's great. And they also do hard copy stuff, but digital sales is kind of a great resource through them. So I don't just want to be a garage band anymore. If you're ready, and kind of where I was at a couple years ago, I was working hardwood floor installation, and I realized I was ready to take it to the next place. I'd played a couple of shows. I had a number of songs under my belt, so I wanted to take it out. So I was trying to figure out what to do next. As I mentioned earlier, don't wait for a record deal. It is like winning the lottery, if you think about it. In Winnipeg here, I think in the last couple of years, there's been 2, maybe 3 big record deals that I can think of. Inward Eye, Imaginary Cities, and Ash Coley. Those are the 3 that I can think of off the top of my head. I think Imaginary Cities have done great, and I think Ash Coley's done great. Inward Eye was one of the biggest ones ever out of Canada in a long time. Clive Davis at Jive Records was interested in these guys, and so they signed. They won the lottery, but unfortunately, that didn't necessarily mean a whole lot. They ended up getting a record deal, like $1 million record deal, went down to L.A. and recorded, and Clive Davis didn't like what they did, and Clive said, you need to work with other writers. They said, nope, and basically just the machine stopped. These guys were incredible. Have you guys ever heard of Inward Eye? Have you heard of this band? They were an incredible trio, 3 brothers, and we were like, everybody in Winnipeg could not believe how good these guys were, and they were we all thought they were going to be the next big thing out of Canada, and then for 5 years their record never came out, and the machine just stopped. Everybody lost touch with them, and all of a sudden they had to start over again. And one of the guys I think is working at a restaurant now, and here in Winnipeg, and things sort of fell apart. So even if you do happen to sign a record deal, doesn't necessarily mean that things are going to be easy coast from there. So don't wait for one of those. I have so many friends in the industry that don't get out. They're amazing, and yet they don't get out there and do enough shows and take the reins of their own career. They're kind of waiting for something to happen, which is so rare. Do it yourself, So the reason why you'd want a label, right, is because they're going to basically take the reins, and you can just sort of let them do what they do, and you just have to be a musician. But I've gotten this far purely on doing a big portion of it on my own. So be prepared to do it yourself. DIY, it's a term that's used all the time at conferences. People say, do it DIY. Are you a DIY artist? And that's what that means. So you really have to be willing to grind away at all of it, being the musician, being the manager, being the roadie, being the social media person. You have to do it all. And it's a lot of work, but if you can find the joy in it, it really is can be quite cool. Think outside the box. The reason why I put this is if you think about it, every single night in every single city in Canada, there's always a number of people playing shows somewhere, and all of them are probably great. Like they're probably good artists, but how do you draw people into your shows? And a friend of mine, James Struthers, he had a CD release party a couple years ago. And he had this really great idea to launch the show and kind of get some media. He put CDs all around Winnipeg, and it said, "Hey, congratulations, you just found my demo, and you also get 2 free tickets to my CD release show at the Pyramid." And this is about 3 years ago, and the media caught wind of this, and it became a big story. And then his show was sold out. He had a sellout show, and so he had. And I don't know how many of those people got in there for free, but either way, when you play a room and there's 400 people, people pay attention, and it was unbelievable. So that was a really interesting way of thinking outside the box. For my last CD release, instead of doing it in a club or in a venue, I did a house concert at my neighbor's place, and I had Aboriginal People's Television Network, APTN, come with 3 cameras, film it live, and stream it on their website so people all over the world could tune in anywhere and buy my album and watch the house concert. So that's what I mean by thinking outside the box. You can't just say, hey, I'm going to put on a show. You might be able to for the first little while, but eventually you want to kind of break outside that and do interesting ways of connecting with your audience. So think outside the box. This was huge. I have a publicist. Actually, my manager is a publicist. So she's such a tremendous tool because she gets me radio interviews, she gets me TV interviews, she gets me print media, like in the newspapers and web stuff, and all that stuff is such a key thing. So, and publicists do all that stuff. So whenever you see on eTalk or you watch and you see celebrities in front of a camera, it's because their publicists set those things up. I mean, it's great if you can get Brad Pitt in front of a camera or and do an interview with them. But if he's not the one making those phone calls, it's his publicist that got him that interview. So publicists are a great resource for us as musicians. Build a buzz using social media, which is not easy. You and a million other artists are trying to get something happening. So you have to be creative and find a way to do that. And the best way, one of the most effective tools I've used recently is I have 5 friends in Winnipeg that I get to basically be part of my street team and say, you guys have to make this work. Because it's so easy for an artist to say, hey, I'm great, you want to hear me? It's awesome. Because, I mean, what artist is going to say, hey, I'm not that great, but you should still come to my show? Like, that's not really going to fly. So find other people that will help kind of get the buzz going for you. That's the way I would do it. So, and be your own manager. Like I said, take the reins on everything. You really have to be in control of all parts of music. So. And lastly, I'm kind of coming to an end of this little bit here, the presentation, and hopefully you guys will have some questions for me. Remember these things. So important to your success as a musician. Stay positive, because there's so many reasons to be negative. You're going to do shows, and people are going to be like, oh, I don't like this, and that's okay, because not everybody's going to like what you do. Tell your story. One of the things that I think makes an artist most unique and be able to be different from anybody else is if you're telling your own story, because nobody else can live your story. So tell your story. Always be yourself. That one's a given. I love this one. This is kind of my mantra. Nobody owes you anything. Because if you can hang on to that idea, then it kind of makes the road a little bit easier, because, I can't tell you how many times I've gone out and ready to do a show in a new market in a place I've never played before, and 3 people show up or 7 people show up or whatever, and you kind of go, man, like, you can really get down and start getting depressed because nobody came to your show, but then you got to go, wait a second, these 7 people came. They could have stayed home and watched CSI or something, but instead they came to your show to support what you do. So be grateful for those 7 people, because they're there. Give them your heart, give them what you do, and don't take that for granted. When people buy a CD or 2, like really let that go to your heart and not your head. So just remember that nobody owes you anything. And lastly, and this is another important word in the music business, is persevere. I think the biggest key to success in music business is just hanging on. It's not easy to do, but you just got to hang in there. So that's music in a nutshell. It's not easy, but it can be done. I had the best money-making year I ever had last year, and I truly believe it could be a sustainable career. And I hope that Manitoba has lots of musicians coming down the road. So